This is our second information session for Library Commons. We want to be prompt and honor everybody's time. Welcome to the second information session for Library Commons. I'm one of your co-hosts, Melfi Antuna, and I am joined by Amanda Bubon.
Hello.
And we're also going to have Faith Williams joining us and Ladora Zolar, who's the project manager that will walk us through the many features of the property. So thank you all for joining us. We know that this is a new normal and most of us are starting to get familiar with Zoom. So we thank you for your patience. We thank you for joining us. And we're going to provide some opportunities at the end of the session. We'll make sure that we leave adequate time to be able to answer all the questions that all the participants have. Just a couple of ground rules. If you have questions, we ask that you use the chat. There is an opportunity or a feature to either raise your hand or provide a question through the chat. Or you can hold your questions to the end. We promise to leave adequate time to go through those. So with any further delay, I want to pass this over to Ladora.
And also just real quickly, if you're just joining us, if you could please put your microphones on mute so that we don't have any disruptions during the presentation.
Thank you, Mel and Amanda. My name is Ladora Zola. I am the project manager for the Library Commons project, which actually I'm sort of new to the game. This project has been in the works for a while, and this is just a really exciting place to be here, you know, getting ready for applications in the lottery. It's been a while coming, so we're very excited. If we could put up the PowerPoint, I can get started. So that's the welcome part. I think we've said that already. Thanks for showing up here in our Zoom. Many of you have probably seen this architectural rendering. This is what it's going to look like when it's completed. Next slide, please. So I'm the project manager. I think we went through this already. Mel and Amanda spoke before. They're gonna go through sort of the bulk of this. I'm just here to explain the property, and Faith is the Senior Vice President of Property and Asset Management here at Wayfinders. Next slide, please. So Library Commons, as I said, it's been a project that takes a while. A lot of these projects do. Lot of community support, which has just been fabulous. Many thanks to the City of Holyoke, our community partners, our funders, the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, the Massachusetts Housing Investment Corp, CDAC, the Community Economic Development Assistance Corp, Common Capital Inc., CCI, Mass Housing Partnership, People's Bank, and I apologize if I forgot anyone, but I think the alphabet soup of acronyms sort of goes to show just how much it takes to put these together. And we really appreciate all of that work. And I think the next slide shows, yep, this shows the site plan. So what we have is Elm Street is at the top. I don't know, some of you may be familiar with the neighborhood, some may not. To the right is Appleton. And then on the bottom is Chestnut. And then up the left is Essex. And so off of Essex and Chestnut is the library. Then we have two buildings. The building where the cursor is now, if you can see that, I know it's hard, especially if you're on a phone. That one is called 210 Elm Street. That's a historic building that we did a historic rehab to. The building down below is a really great combination of old and new. There was existing buildings, Carlton and Randolph were their names, and then we added a new addition. And then there's parking, and you can see a few trees in there. Sometimes these are very hard to read on screens, like I said, especially if you have a phone. So let's go for some more pictures. There we go. This one is a little old actually, but I love this one just because it shows how much work we're doing. if you go by now, it looks totally different. This is the new addition and the Carlton and the Randolph. And next slide. So along with the community partners and our funders, we very much want to thank our great architects and NL Construction. They are the ones that are going to make this happen and get us moving in on time. So huge thanks to them. Next. So what we have in the Library Commons project is 38 apartments within 2 buildings. So it's a combination of rehab and some new construction. That 210 Elm Street has 12 apartments, 10 of those are affordable and 2 are market. And then the Chestnut Street building has 26 apartments. So we have a total of 38. Next slide. So in the 210, which also sometimes we call the nurses building, just I think that's a historic element, is we have 8 2-bedrooms and 4 3-bedrooms. One of the 3 bedrooms is fully ADA, fully accessible. The Chestnut Street building has 15 2-bedrooms and 11 3-bedrooms. Of the 2-bedroom, we have 1 fully accessible 2-bedroom and 1 fully accessible 3-bedroom, and also a sensory unit for a household member who might have sensory impairments. We can go to the next. The features, both buildings have elevator in the building. Each building has a laundry room, mailboxes in the lobby. The community and program space is in the building on Elm, the 210 Elm Street. That's the ground floor of that building, is program space for some of the programs we're offering, community space that can be used for however someone, you know, in a residential project would want to use a community space. 54 parking spaces, ample parking. Utilities are included in the rent, and I don't mean to be taking over Amanda's piece here, but it's heat and hot water, electricity, all covered. And we have on-site property management, which will be an office in the building on Chestnut Street. I think that covered all the stuff. The community space and program space will be used for some supportive services. There'll be financial literacy classes, first-time homebuyer ed, career counseling, those types of pieces, tax prep. I saw college assistance and college financial aid assistance. And there's also an innovative program that the Care Center is going to be running called the Roquet House program. And that's an arts, cultural, educational program that if people are interested, they should contact the Care Center, or when you're there, find out about it. So a lot of stuff is going to be happening on the campus, the project, which is, again, very exciting. And I think, is that it in terms of what's happening? The buildings are going to be, our construction is in sort of 2 steps. So one building is going to be done first. That's going to be the 210 Elm Street building. And that will be completed late this year. And then the other building, the Chestnut Street building, will be complete in the spring. So I think that, well, next slide. I think that sort of gets, yeah, that gets sort of my end. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer, or if I don't have the answer, try to find it out. But I think I'll toss this back to Amanda and Mel.
Thank you, Ladora, for such a eloquent and great description of the project. Like Ladora mentioned, this is a project that has been ongoing for quite some time, and it has evolved into something beautiful. I want to talk about a couple of things and important factors. So everyone is probably wondering in reference to the application. So let's talk about the deadline of the application up on the screen. If you're able to see your screen, whether you're on a laptop or a telephone, the application deadlines, which means it has to be post-stamped, at least to us at Wayfinders, by October 16th of 2020. As Ladora mentioned, The project has been, because of many factors, including COVID, broken down into 2 steps, one of which is gonna have 12 units available by the end of this year, and the remainder of those units will be in summer of 2021. But it's only gonna be 1 lottery. So we encourage everyone to, I'll walk you through how to obtain the application. But I want to just make sure that you have this date in mind, that October 16th, we need to have the applications by that date. The next important date that I want to talk about is the actual lottery. I suspect that lottery, generally we do it in public, and we do it at a location that could accommodate more than 100 people, because we want to make sure that folks understand that this is a process that's very transparent. We actually put every person, and Amanda will be talking about that, every application will be coded with an actual code, which goes into a, what are we calling this?
Bingo.
It's a bingo roller.
It's a bingo roller, and we literally start pulling codes, numbers out, and that is your sequence of the lottery. And I'll let Amanda talk a little bit about that. But what's important is that the lottery is going to be taking place October 30th. And so those are 2 dates that you really want to keep in the back of your mind. October 16th to get us the application, and then October 30th, it's probably going to be Zoom. We will definitely, with how the climate is right now, we'll be able to set up a Zoom platform such as this, where everybody could participate and see us pulling the lottery sequence. So next slide, please. Now I want to give you some information in how to obtain the application, and ask any questions that you may leave today's platform with just some doubts or some questions, and you think of something later on and you want to post that question, feel free to email us. On the screen, there is an email. It's lisa@wayfinders.org. So feel free to shoot us any questions that you might have that you feel that we didn't cover in this session. And then lastly, for my part, is how to obtain the applications. Because of the COVID new reality that we're living in, the norm that we're living, we're trying to really make sure that folks in our organization and in the community stay safe. And although we want to really provide this application hard copies in different areas, a lot of areas are closed to the public at this time. So right now, we're looking right now to just have the application available online. I suspect that by the 3rd session, we can identify some locations that folks may obtain hard copies. But for now, let's go to how you could actually obtain an application if you wanted to download it, print it, and fill it out at your own convenience, or if you have the ability to fill it up right online, we're able to accommodate that request as well. So you go to wayfinders.org, you'll go to our organization's main page. You're going to click, once you're on this page, you're going to go to the second, where if you could follow the cursor, it says real estate development, and you're going to scroll down to where it says apply for library commons. We try to make this step as easy as possible. So if you go to our main website, which is wayfinders.org, you hit real estate, and then you drop down to apply for library commons. And if we click on that, you'll come up with this screen that'll show the rendering of the development. And as you scroll down, you'll see that there is a link to your bottom right that says apply online. There's 2 options. You could apply online, or you could download and print. So this may be an instant that you want to print the application for someone that you think could benefit from this great affordable housing opportunity. So you could print it out, have it, save it, and get it to your folks. If you are a applicant that wants to apply for it directly, you could click where it says apply online, and we'll see where that takes us. And you'll see that this is basically the application electronically. As we scroll down, it'll give you some information. These are the things that you're required. Next to, for example, where it says address, you'll see that there is a red star. What that means, and on those particular areas, you're gonna have to put information. That information is needed in order to proceed. But as you can see, is pretty standard. It's gonna ask information about yourself, what is it that you're looking for, bedroom size, what type of unit are you looking for, and so forth and so on. So we try to make it as easy and accessible as possible. So feel free that if for some reason you're not able to get that information, to let us know. There is also an important feature that you're able to select the language. So we know that in this community, we have several languages that Wayfinder prides itself to make sure that important information is put out to our community. And so you could click on to the top right where it says Google, and Google will translate it for you in several languages. So please note that the application is also in English and in Spanish. And as I indicated earlier, there is the email that you could always email us if you have any further questions. I will pass this on to Amanda to talk a little bit about the lottery.
Thank you. I do want to just add one thing about the application process itself. It doesn't matter if you download the application, fill it out by hand and mail it or email it to us, or if you fill it out online. Both platforms have the same questions and request the same exact information. So there's not any different questions online or in the application. There's an opportunity on both platforms for you to be able to provide us with the same exact data that we need to have in order to enter your application into the lottery. I do want to just also add that this Zoom session is being recorded so that we can provide a recording of it to the participants so that you guys can go back and watch it later if you're interested in watching it later. And so that we can provide that in case people aren't able to attend the whole session or they're not able to attend any sessions. We will have a recorded Zoom information session available on our website. And in addition to that, we'll also be posting this PowerPoint so that people can have access to that and go back through it as well. People are encouraged to register and attend as many information sessions as they want. A lot of the general information that we're providing is going to be the same throughout each session, but different questions tend to get asked at different sessions. So sometimes there's questions that people ask in one session that we're providing answers to that don't get asked in other sessions. We try to tailor the information to include as many of the frequently asked question data that we can. But it's, you know, you can definitely register. The lottery itself is also going to be held by Zoom. You can register for that on our website, just like you register for the Zoom information sessions. And lastly, the final information session that we have posted on our website, we are going to be having Spanish and English in that informational session. And that session is Tuesday, September 22nd at 1 p.m. So if you would like to attend a session that's specifically in Spanish, please register. Feel free to register for that session on our webpage. Attending the lottery itself, joining the session for the lottery, it's kind of a little bit of an intense process, like Melfi was referring to earlier. As the applications come in, whether they're mailed in, emailed in, completed online, we're printing them out, we code them all with a generic identifying code. And then we will.
There's a slide for that.
Yeah. Next slide, Tyler. So again, printed applications, you can mail them to us. They can also be emailed and they can also be filled out online. And you could go to the next slide. Again, the deadline is the 16th. Applicants must be 18 years of age or older in order to apply, and all applications must be complete. You can email it to us at leaseup@wayfinders.org. It could be mailed to us at our housing center at 1780 Main Street in Springfield, and then it could also be filled out online. We do date stamp all of the applications to ensure that all of the applicants that are included in the lottery were actually received by the deadline. We assign them with a code. Information included in the code is a general identifying number, income percentage number, the status of your homelessness, or if you're enrolled in economic self-sufficiency program. All of those become part of your lottery identification code. Tyler, you can go to the next slide. We will also be mailing you a letter that will have your lottery ID code in it, so that you'll have that information prior to the lottery. If you choose to register and follow along, you can listen for when your code is called. We will ask you at some point for income and asset information, so it's good to start collecting that data now. Any benefit letters you have, pay stubs from employment, bank statements for any checking and savings accounts, savings bonds, any other kind of assets that you have. You want to start gathering that documentation so that once the lottery is complete and we're looking to set up screening sessions with people to gather all that documentation, you already have everything readily available. You can go to the next slide. When we do the lottery itself, as Melfi referred to earlier, we take a slip that has every single code on it. So there's one slip for each code, and they all got put into a big clear bingo roller, and we mix it all up and we just pull the papers out one by one. And that's how the lottery is done. So we have your code. We know that your code is assigned to you. During the lottery session, there's no personal information, no names. There's no any information like that gets presented. It's literally just pulling the codes and reading off those numbers. And then we keep track. We have a 3-check system when we do the lottery. As we take the codes out of the bingo thing, we put them on a paper so that we have them in the order that they came out. In addition to that, we have someone writing it down by hand, and then we also have somebody entering it into the computer, and then we go back and we double check all 3 sources to make sure that we have the correct order based on the pull of the lottery. That kind of generates the initial waiting list for the properties. It's the lottery itself that generates that. There is preferences to talk about when it comes to assigning units. So everybody comes out of the lottery based on when their slip was pulled out of the batch. And then from there are accessible units on the property, and first preference for those accessible units goes to applicants who need the features of those units. After that, there are MRBP units. There are subsidized units on the property that have a preference for participants of educational economic self-sufficiency programs, and those preference for those units would go to those applicants out of the lottery. The remainder of the units will be leased up in lottery order. That's the initial waiting list. If you don't get selected during the lottery to go through the screening process for a unit at the initial lease up, you're still on the waiting list based on how you came out of the lottery. So, and sometimes we get to a point where we have units that are not subsidized, but they are affordable units. There are income limits that we have to follow. And occasionally we get with some units to the point where we exhaust the lottery list and we have to take applicants from after the lottery deadline in order to fill those specific units based on the eligibility criteria for those units. So don't be discouraged once the lottery happens and you get your lottery placement letter that says you came out of the lottery at number 150 or 345 or whatever the number is. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have no opportunity in the beginning, because we may get that far down the list before we fill all of the apartments. Again, we will be leasing up the first set of apartments in December. or January timeline. And then it will be a few months later before the remainder of the units come out of construction and they're online and we can lease them up. We are expecting to have the buildings fully occupied by July of 2021. So it's going to be a pretty fast and intense process. Next slide, Tyler. We again ask if you have any questions, just type them into the chat feature. We're going to go through them shortly and try to answer as many as we possibly can. Some things that we can add or just summarize here is that the application deadline is October 16th. The lottery itself is going to be held on October 30th. Please apply even if you miss the deadline. We don't stop accepting applications. Everybody gets added to the waiting list. And make sure that we have your phone number, your proper address, so that you're getting the correspondence from us. When we get to the point where we're doing screening, we don't just send a letter to the address on file. We will send a letter, we will try to call you. We will even go to contacting any service providers that have been listed on the application as contact people. We will also contact your emergency contact so that you have every opportunity to go through the screening process and have an opportunity to see if you're eligible for a unit.
I would also add, give yourself some time. Try not to wait to that deadline to fill out the application, just in case you have a question and you need to reach out to us. You know, sometimes we've seen where folks don't fill out an application by the deadline because they had questions and they kind of waited and now the deadline has passed. So I encourage everybody to get started as soon as possible with applying online, or even if it's a hard copy, just in case you get stuck with a question, please reach out to us and then you'll have ample time to be able to have your completed application on time by the deadline. So I think that we want to talk a little bit before we answer any questions. Thank you for your patience. So hang in there. We'll be going through all the questions. But Ladora did talk about a supported service component that Library Commons has, and I'd like to pass the floor to Faith Williams that'll talk a little bit about that.
Great, thank you both Mel, Amanda, and Lidara. I'd also like to thank Tyler Hadley, who's in our development department, for helping us with the technology tonight. Things are going actually much smoother than they typically do with the Zoom meetings that I've been involved with, so I want to thank everybody. I also did want to say that we will be answering questions for folks after the presentation has been completed. So there are a number of services that will be provided on site at the property. And as Lidara mentioned earlier, we will be bringing in providers to assist residents with things like fuel assistance applications, tax preparation, financial literacy, first-time home buyers, and a variety of other activities and other programs that are involved or provided in various locations. I will say that during COVID, we have actually seen an uptick in the types of services that are provided to our residents, including school feeding programs. I learned today about a program where they're distributing bicycles to youth in our properties. So as those opportunities become available within the portfolio, we share those with our residents and we invite people in to present things and to offer things to our residents. In addition to that, we are lucky in this property to have 10 of the units set aside for people who are enrolled in economic self-sufficiency educational programs. These are units that are set aside for families with young children. And the most prominent one or most widely known one at this point is with the care center. So applicants who are involved in the Roque House or care center type program, or in programs that are sponsored by other community colleges or Enlace, other organizations in Holyoke and throughout the region, who have members who have young children who are enrolled in an economic and educational self-sufficiency program are given a priority for the 10 units that are set aside for people participating in those programs. And so we're very excited. This is the first time that we've ever done anything like this. And we will be accepting applications which will need to be accompanied by a letter from the organization that you're enrolled with, stating that you are enrolled in a program. We are working with those programs and providing them with a boilerplate letter that basically states the name of the person and the fact that they're enrolled in the program that we're hoping will be accompanied with applications, so that we can document heading into the lottery that you're actually involved with one of those programs. So I think at this point, it's probably best, being mindful of the time, that we move on to the question portion of the presentation. I've written down a couple of them. Tyler, I did ask that you put up the flyer that has the income limits. If you can possibly zoom in on the income limits, that would be great. So here you can see on the screen that there are a variety of income levels, and we serve in this development and other developments that Wayfinders have, we serve populations typically that are at or below 30% of area median income, at or below 50% of area median income, or at or below 60% of area median income. And so, for example, a family of 2 who are at 30% of area median income would have income not more than $20,520. A family of 2 who would be categorized at 50% of area median income would have an income of no more than $34,200. And a family at 60% would earn no more than $41,040. I will tell you that these are the income limits that we will be using to lease up the property. I will also tell you that these income limits are analyzed and changed annually, but these are the income limits that we will be using for the lease up of Library Commons. Another question that I did see in the list of questions in the chat area is Amanda mentioned that there are going to be units that are set aside for homeless individuals or homeless families. And the question was, do I need verification that I am homeless? And yes, that we will require information that verifies your status as being homeless. Most of the people that we house who have qualified for this status are typically working with service providers in the area who are familiar with this type of letter and are capable of providing this kind of verification for us. This is something that the funders do require. I had another question.
Faith,
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Just to add to that, I had a question coming in.
Yep.
Do we need documentation at the time of application? And so that's very important to know that the application works by itself. So once you submit the application, as Amanda said, if you're part of that first group that we're going to be calling out, at that particular time, there is a pre-screening process in which we will let you know what type of documentation you're going to need. And if it happens to be the part about homeless or the economic sufficiency perspective or part of your application, at that pre-screening process is where you're going to need the additional documentation. But just to be clear, just for the application process, you don't need any additional documentation.
The documentation, so it is at application, at the point of application, it is a self-certification of income. So the application asks for income of the head of household and all other members of the household. So at that point, it is self-certification, especially in this case where we are going to be doing a lease up in December and January. We would not be wanting people to provide us with income documentation if they're going to be moving into the property in June or July, because you would have to go through those same hurdles again. I do want to reiterate that people do have to be 18 years of age or older even to enter the lottery. So if somebody's birthday was November 1st, their application will not go into the lottery. So we did show the income guidelines. I think, Tyler, if you could get those back up just so people can see them, that would be great. I think I also did mention that we will be posting this presentation on the website, and we will be posting this Zoom on the website, but we also will have the presentation available for people to download as well.
Some of the other questions that
Yep.
we've gotten, which are good, there is some questions here that we're gonna look into after this session about the application itself online. A few people have asked questions about having trouble putting in their bank account information and adding, it looks like dependents children because of their age and their social security number.
Okay.
So we'll look into those things and see what we can do to get them resolved. There's a few questions here about preferences. There's a question about preference to residents in the city of Holyoke. There's a question if being a victim of domestic violence would bring you up on the list. And if you had applied for DHCD assistance, if that would bring you up on the list. There is no local preference for residents of the city of Holyoke. There's also no priority placement for any domestic violence or public actions or public health violations or anything like that for these apartments. As we indicated earlier, as I had spoken to earlier, the only preferences for unit assignment after the lottery is for accessible units for applicants who need the features of those units. And just to clarify, someone asked what a sensory unit was. A sensory accessible unit has adaptations in it for hearing or visual impairment, typically with flashing strobes and the smoke detectors and smoke detectors that emit a low base frequency so that if people are hard of hearing, they'll still be alerted in the nighttime if there's an issue with smoke or fire so they can get out. But other than, and then the other preference for the subsidized units going to applicants who are enrolled in supportive educational and economic self-sufficiency programs. There's a few different agencies and organizations that offer those type of programs. It's not limited to any one program. You don't specifically have to be enrolled with the care center or another program in order to qualify if you're enrolled in any of those.
So if somebody is enrolled in Holyoke Community College as a part-time, they would qualify?
If they were enrolled in classes at Holyoke Community College and participating in self-sufficiency program of some kind.
Just wanted to provide a
Yep.
couple of examples. And so there is another question coming in. If you have a Section 8 mobile voucher, can you still apply to live at Library Commons?
Yes, you can absolutely apply. Again, there are only a small selection of the apartments that have project-based subsidies attached to them. The remainder of the apartments are affordable apartments. And we absolutely encourage you to apply if you have a Section 8 voucher. We'll work through that process with you, with your caseworker. There's 20 units that are not subsidized. So 20 of the 38 units don't have a subsidy attached to them. So you could definitely bring a Section 8 voucher or if it's Section 8 or a project like a MRVP voucher or any other type of subsidized voucher. There are many different kinds that you could have in today's day. There's a lot of different agencies and organizations that have subsidized vouchers for tenants, and we work through all of those programs. A couple of people have asked about raft assistance. You can absolutely apply for raft assistance for help with moving in, security deposit, first month's rent. Wayfinders does administer raft funds. It's not the department that we, property management, work for, but if you contact a housing consumer education center in Holyoke or here in Springfield or even in Northampton, they can direct you to the right individuals and the right department in order to get more information about that and to go through that process. I believe you can also apply for that online.
Yes, you can.
When it comes to a couple of questions that came in about being new to Massachusetts or not necessarily having an address, or, you know, being homeless and bouncing from place to place, can you use a PO box? Absolutely. You could put a PO box for your address on your application. That's completely acceptable. We do ask for 5 years worth of landlord history as part of our screening process. But in addition to that, we also offer the opportunity to provide personal references in the absence of a landlord reference. So if you're in a situation where you don't have a landlord reference because you're homeless and you're bouncing from place to place, we look for personal references that aren't somebody in your family, community contacts, people at community organizations that know you, people from, you know, any kind of groups or, you know, social engagements that you have. We do take personal references. Also on the application, there's, you know, you can submit credit references. Melfi has a statement that he always says, which is, you know, don't let the past, don't let the past prevent you from taking the opportunity for an apartment.
Basically put yourself in the best place of opportunity. So, you know, as Amanda's saying, she's giving you information that you're going to need kind of for the second step if your lottery number comes up. So I just want to be clear that don't let the preparation and getting and obtaining these documents prevent you from applying. So the first step is really getting your application in there, as we talked about, by October 16th, and then that puts you in the best opportunity to be able to get a unit. Then we'll go into the step of the pre-screening process, which is exactly what Amanda is talking about in reference to the documentation that you're going to need to provide in order to move forward with the screening process for the unit.
So,
And there's only a certain selection of the units that have, they don't all have to be homeless?
No.
No. So you do not have to be homeless with verification to be eligible for the apartments. There are some apartments in which the eligibility for those units requires the homelessness to be verified. But again, that's only for those units that are set aside for that purpose.
And we understand that when it comes to the lottery, it's a very complicated process. And I think that one of the ways that we've been able to kind of compartmentalize how do we think through that process, because we don't want to be confusing in our messaging, is that there's different buckets for all the units at Library Commons. So there is a preference bucket for an economic supported program. There is a different bucket for some units that require someone that was homeless. There is a different bucket for folks that are under 60% area median income. So again, I continue to push the message of apply and put yourself in the best position of opportunity, because although this lottery may have 300 applicants for a specific unit, once you start going with the layers of preference, you may be up. So the best chance that you could give yourself is applying by October 16th.
yep. So I also wanted to add, there is a question about, do we accept home base?
Yes.
We absolutely do accept home base. And the other question was about, you know, sort of, there are various definitions of homelessness. Somebody talked about fire or condemnation. If you can provide proof that a property has been condemned through to a fire and you are deemed homeless, then that is certainly acceptable documentation for that sort of thing. I also, somebody joined us a little bit late and said that they were sorry that they missed the part where you fill out the application. So for that person and everybody else, I just want to remind you that this session is being recorded and that there are going to be 2 additional sessions, one in English and one in Spanish. But you will be able to go to our website and see this session fully recorded. So anything that you missed, you can go back and look for. Somebody also asked a question about small pets. I believe that this is a pet-free property,
Yes.
so small pets would not be allowed.
And then also, there was another question here. I think there was a question, 2 stories, the building's 2 floors? It's 3 stories. So somebody had asked how many floors is the building? It is a 3-floor building and there
one
is an
4.
elevator.
So it's a 3 and a 4.
Yeah, in the older part of the building, that was the original structure. There's 3 stories and there's 4 stories. And the newer part of the building that we constructed, there's 3 stories, but there is an elevator in the middle.
There's an elevator in every building.
Oh,
So
every
there's
building.
there's an elevator in the
Okay.
nurses building, and then there's an elevator that is in a connector to the other building that is sort of in 2 sections.
And I think that we also, as we're wrapping up this meeting, we want to touch a little bit about security. So this is a property that is going to have we're going to have an access panel in the front of the building as folks enter. If folks are visiting you, they would be using a intercom system that will display who the person is reaching out to that unit, and that unit will be able to buzz them in. There's many security cameras at this site for the safety of our tenants and our staff. And we think that this is a beautiful integration to the community at Library Commons. The new rendering, as Ladora described, it really feeds off the beautiful work that the city of Holyoke has done with the current library that's diagonal from the property. So this property certainly complements the area, and we want to encourage everyone to, again, the dates, October 16th is that date for that deadline for the application. So we want to encourage everyone to fill out an application and submit it by then.
There was one question in that asked if there was any housing at this development for single individuals. And based on our tenant selection plan that's been approved by the Department of Housing and Community Development, the minimum household size for the 2-bedroom units is a household of 2, and the minimum household size for a 3-bedroom unit is a household of 3. So in a situation where you have a single individual, you would not be able to rent a 2-bedroom unless there was some type of accommodation for that. You know, if you had a live-in care attendant, or, you know, there was some medical need that you needed a 2-bedroom as a single individual, we would absolutely review that request. But just straight out, the tenant selection plan has indicated that the households for the 2 bedrooms have to be at least 2 people, and the 3 bedrooms have to be at least 3 people.
And I do have one point of clarification that may have caused confusion, but somebody asked why there are nurses at the property, and is this an extended living or assisted living situation? The first building that will be coming online is actually a building that housed nurses for the local hospitals. And so it is called the Nurses Building. And certainly if there are folks who are enrolled in a nursing program and an economic self-sufficiency program and want to live there, they can, but it is not assisted living, and there will not necessarily be nurses living on site. So sorry for that. It's part of the historical aspect of the property.
And I think it's important, I know that this information session really is about Library Commons and providing folks the opportunity to live in a beautiful, developed, affordable housing building. But if you're looking for additional areas that you're looking to live, please look at our website. You go the same way, wayfinders.org. You go into the real estate development drop down, and there's a list of all our property and asset management. You would click there and you could get right into the middle of the page as I'm indicating on the screen. You hit full properties and it gives you a description of all the properties that Wayfinders either owns or manage and the different sectors, and you're able to click at that particular town and it will drop down into an application where you could click where it says learn more, and you're able to print the application for that particular property as well. So we encourage everyone to certainly put their application in for Library Commons by October 16th. And if they're looking to move into different areas, into an affordable well-managed property, which Wayfinders pride itself in, please look at our website at wayfinders.org.
Yeah, and lastly, again, a link to this recorded Zoom informational session will be provided on the website, as well as a link with the PowerPoint presentation with all of the information. A lot of the information is available here on the landing page that you're looking for library commons. You can get the income limit information there. We, if you want to complete the application online in a different language, again, that feature is available on the website by using the Google link and selecting the language at the top middle of the page, so that if you need to have it translated for you. And the application deadline, we have to receive or have your application postmarked by the post office by October 16th, 2020. We will be having the lottery on October 30th. It is a public information session, so you can register to be on the Zoom for the lottery itself. You will receive a letter prior to the lottery reminding you of the date and time of the lottery and providing you with your identifying code so that if you choose to participate, you will, you'll be able to listen for your code. And then I think that's about it.
Yep, I think I just want to thank everybody for being on this Zoom tonight. This is a whole new world for us. We went to all virtual info sessions. So I really want to thank again, Melfi and Amanda and Lidara and Tyler. Want to encourage you to apply early and get your application in. That allows us to code it and then turn around and send you the letter letting you know that we've received your application. And remember to go to our webpage. You will be able to see this recording. And if you have anybody that you know who was not able to attend tonight or may not be able to attend the other info sessions, then please send them to our webpage and they should be able to get all of the information that they need. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to all my Wayfinders friends for helping out with this.
Thank you.
Good
all.
night, everybody.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.